Hello, everyone, and welcome to Autism Stories, where we connect you with amazing people that help autistic adults and teens become more successful. I'm your host, Doug Bletcher, the founder of Autism Personal Code. What if workplace satisfaction could be improved with the creation of special interest groups at your workplace? On this episode of Autism Stories, Byran Dai, co-founder of Daivergent, discusses how the creation of these special interest groups have been so important to his neurodiverse employees. We hope you enjoy today's conversation. Byran, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Doug.
Now, I'm a person that really enjoys learning from new people and new experiences. And I've never interviewed a data scientist for Autism Stories. So I'm wondering, where is the connection for you as a data scientist to the autism community?
Well, to start, my background as a data scientist was working within the healthcare technology space. And quite a bit of what we did is we built artificial intelligence products that really tried to predict and identify folks who might be good recipients of services. And so much of this artificial intelligence that we built was actually built off of human intelligence. They were tools that were able to gain understanding and make predictions based off of learning from what human beings told it were the correct types of predictions. And so what we noticed is that so much of this work was being done and being satisfied by a community that was very well suited and able to be really excellent workers in this type of area. And what we also realized is that there is an opportunity to bring some of this type of work to the autism community. And a lot of this was actually born from my experiences with my brother and seeing how this was a type of work that was both accessible, that was well equipped, well aligned with his aptitude areas. And what we would want to start doing is saying, could you actually start to bring a talent population that could actually be able to perform well within this type of 21st century type of work? And that was really the kind of light bulb moment when we said, with data science, with artificial intelligence, machine learning, there is that overlap with the autism community.
Now, you co-founded Daivergent with the mission to pair those on the autism spectrum with companies looking for candidates who could work in data and artificial intelligence. What was your process, thinking back to the beginning, of hiring your first autistic employee?
The process was interesting. We started working from the very beginning with a trusted group of service providers. So our very first collaboration was with AHRC, which is the art chapter out of New York City. And they actually helped us to recruit and hire our first, actually two employees who were autistic. And what was really, really amazing about that is that as the company has grown, our employees have grown with us. And it was really both a combination of having a partner that we can continue to turn to, continue to build with, and that actually ended up becoming the model that we used to be able to source and recruit candidates on behalf of the companies that we work with. And so that process of hiring these employees in collaboration with our service provider partners is now the basis for which we also encourage companies who are first exploring hiring folks who are on the autism spectrum to be able to work and incorporate that kind of a strategy into their own sourcing and hiring efforts. And so that's been something that was really a big success for us.
Thinking about those companies that you encourage that are first exploring hiring autistic people, how have you come about in learning about their exploration interests?
I think that's a really big point that you bring up, Doug, which is that the way that we think about it at Daivergent is that we actually need to be the ones that are accommodating for the autistic population, because the reality is we need to be able to provide resourcing and not be the case that this is about just a narrow subset or a small group that happens to match, say, some predefined qualifications. What we do is we actually think more holistically by providing a way to be able to start building a profile across different work and vocational domains. So by that, what we do is we have both assessments and screenings that can be used to really start to get at what are some of the skills and interest areas that our candidates have, and then use those self-reported information to be able to connect over to the opportunities that we've also been able to build out with companies, with hiring platforms, with remote work platforms. This for us is about, a person who would be a good fit for Daivergent at the end of the day should be ideally anybody. And in fact, what Daivergent needs to be is actually something that is of value to that person. In order for us to be of value, we have to actually go down to a point where we are understanding what that person wants, and then linking that person back to the opportunities and the projects and the trainings that can actually let them achieve their potential. So that might be sort of a bit of a roundabout way of saying that we think of ourselves as really good fits for everyone, because we, more importantly, try to get an understanding of each person and personalize what those opportunities that might be fits based on that profile that they show to us.
So it sounds like a lot of companies talk about individualizing things, but it sounds like you really do go about doing that.
And this is actually from direct feedback that we have received from self-advocates, from families, from service providers, that it really has to be this way. There's not there's sort of a perception and a feeling that that there is a way to generalize off of singular traits. But I think the reality is we are also learning, and we are also trying to be responsive to the community. And the thing that comes out to us loud and clear is that it needs to be individualized, it needs to be personalized, and that's exactly how we build out our platform as well.
So currently, how many autistic employees do you have, and what have you learned about the employment process from them?
So right now we have about 1,200 candidates who are across our pool. We source this across both our own direct outreach as well as our partnerships with about now a little over 90 different provider organizations. I think what we really learned from this whole process, not just the part about making sure to go personalizing and building up that individual specific experience, but it's also about bringing awareness into a broader corporate environment that is both the enterprises for the large companies and the Fortune 500s of the world, but also bringing this type of awareness to a much larger set of smaller companies. And so this is really where we think about technology being a way to scale what we've seen as amazing models that have been set up by provider organizations, by neurodiversity programs within the enterprise space. What we wanted to do was build a way for those organizations and those entities to take their models and be able to share them at a much bigger scale. So for us, what we've heard from our employees, what we've heard from and learned from our processes is that the main thing here is bring awareness to a much broader audience. And once you bring that awareness, that actually leads the way to greater impact in numbers of autistic employees who may be able to enter the workforce, because you brought that greater receptivity, that greater awareness and greater excitement from a much bigger pool of hiring managers, of companies. And that's something I think is it's fairly unique to Daivergent, is that we provide that technology layer that is able to expand that capacity and expand that reach that a lot of providers, a lot of families, a lot of self-advocates want to see in the space.
From the outside looking in, it seems like Daivergent provides candidates more than just a place of employment, but a culture of learning through developing skills in programming, graphic design, and marketing. So how do you go about teaching these skills?
we do this in two ways. The first is that we have our own content library of both video-based and curriculum-based trainings. And so these are a combination of our own materials, our third-party collaborations, as well as content that's hosted on behalf of our provider partners. And so we're actually instructing folks according to a syllabus that is created based on their feedback, based on their preferences, based on also input that might come in from their support networks. We're being able to create a curriculum that is responsive to that kind of set of preferences. And then the second area is that we provide Daivergent also a program that can be used service providers, where they can put Daivergent as almost like a class or a course alongside some of their own day programming. So this type of structure is really personalized, and we're able to use a curriculum setup which is individualized to the people on our platform based on their self-report, their feedback, insights that might be gathered from their coaches or from families or from teachers who are in their support circle. We are able to leverage that to get them onto a curriculum that is well suited to where they want to go. And the second, that Daivergent also serves as a program that provides and universities and education institutions put as part of a student's schedule. And so in this way, they might take Daivergent as a way to gain some experience with work, or to be able to connect to a broader community of autistic and neurodiverse peers.
Now, life is much more than about work, and it's also really about developing community, which is so important for all of us. I would say that autistic people often develop community through their shared interest or special interest. And that seems to be something Daivergent seems to understand, as you have many shared interest groups through your company. What are some of those groups?
This is where members of our community will host weekly discussions where folks might find others who are interested in video games, in anime, in cinema, film, TV shows, trying to create these shared interest communities that are reflective of what is a very, very broad set of interests across the community. And so here, some of the groups that we've seen being the most popular in this most activity are often within the console and PC gaming forums. You often have a lot of participation there. A lot of interesting debates that happen on there too. We also have what is more of a kind of general water cooler. So the thought there is that not only do you necessarily have to give defined shared interest areas, you can also create protected safe spaces, which can just be more for free-form conversations about whatever is top of mind for folks. And I think this type of hobby setup, as well as this type of free-form setup, are some of the most popular areas of our community today. And what we're starting to do is work with providers to see, can we take some of these online communities and actually translate those into in-person events. That's been something that we've heard quite a bit of feedback from the users who are on our platform today, and it's something that we are working hard to be responsive for.
How do you go about deciding what shared interest groups to create?
Very beginning, we came up with a few groups. What we do after establishing that initial set of shared interest groups is that we throw it back over to our users to actually think and describe what want to be discussing amongst their peers. We have a really great community moderator who had come on board in the beginning, someone who actually joined us from the university student as an intern, who himself is neurodiverse and really coordinates and facilitates much of the discussion, as well as the creation of new boards, new discussion groups, which is about discussing more about politics or current events in the area of neurodiversity and autism. But then after we set up those initial general areas, and that's where we've worked together with the community to be able to bring this into a much more encompassing set of communities.
haven't heard of companies that have had these shared interest groups before, which I think is a great idea. Why do you think more companies should invest in these groups?
I think at the end of the day, it comes down to, like what you said, is that life is so much more than just work. It's really about that community development. And so you think about, during the day, someone might be working from, say the morning to the afternoon or morning to early evening. But there's a whole 50% of life that happens outside of that work hours. And so I think companies taking the time to recognize that these groups are about helping folks to realize the potential, not just of the 50% of the time they're at work, but the 50% of the time that they're at life. That's something where if you put a little bit of investment, and like what we did, we put a little bit of investment in resourcing to be able to host some of these communities. What we started to see is that the satisfaction and the feeling of being part of a broader whole became much more prominent. We do surveys that we have with our users on our platform. We're asking, where can we really improve? And our team, week over week, uses that as ways to prioritize what our platform is developed towards. And in the very beginning, the feeling was, I know that there's a community that's beyond just me, but I don't have a mechanism to actually tap into this group of peers. And so we said, let's invest a little bit to make sure that these shared interest groups are part of our core ethos. And as a result, now we see this as one of the most active parts of our platform, where in any one day you might have one group that is discussing the latest developments across the world of console gaming. You might have another area which is more about art, and then one area which is actually particularly interesting are folks talking about their pets. I think that's when you realize there's really a lot more than just somebody's work. That work is just one component of the person's life, and so we want to make sure we can do whatever we can to help make that a broader understanding of a person core to Daivergent as a whole.
Of those that are on the platform, how many of these people are accessing remote work?
That's right. So for us, we have among this group of 1,200 candidates, once they come onto the platform, they are able to take on any request that comes in, any task that they can qualify for, as well as participate across the community, participate across the training that we have. And we're starting to incorporate this more into what we're hearing from providers like the arts, organizations like universities, providing them a way to also be able to provide content and connections back to their coaches, so that there's really a way to continue to build up and to upskill folks into roles that are not just what they're seeing today in the remote work side, but also building them towards more job opportunities, more roles in the community that really push more towards this inclusivity priority that I think becomes our North Star as a company. How do we position and become a stepping stone for members of our community who might be able to use remote work as a way to build up a resume, build up experience that can allow them to become much more competitive to the eyes of a hiring manager once they enter into the community. So that's something that's available across all of our users today.
And for the listeners of Autism Stories, how can they learn more about Daivergent?
I encourage anyone who is interested to check us out at www.daivergent.com, Daivergent. We have information that we host on there, as well as webinars that we host every month. We also work with a number of organizations across the U.S. What I encourage is if anybody's interested to check us out on the website, reach out to us on any of our forums, or they can also send an email over to us at hello@divergent.com, and one of our team would be more than happy to help.
Well, Brian, I really enjoyed the conversation and getting the opportunity to learn a little bit more about Daivergent.
Doug, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to today's episode, and thank you to Brian for the conversation. One of the most important aspects of the coaching services of Autism Personal Coach is helping autistic people to get more involved in their special interests, because when they do, it can change their lives forever. To get an autism coach for yourself or a loved one to help you to get more involved in your special interest, email doug.bletcher@autismpersonalcoach.com or call or text 216-336-5889 and request a coach today. On the next episode of Autism Stories, Becca Laurie Hector will return to talk about autistic people and marriage. Talk to you then.
Conversation issues, keeping it short, even with practice, we still struggle to having a relationship with someone we like, talking to people doesn't last that long, going on outings, sometimes alone, sure is upsetting, but I'm sure we're fine, talking to our friends, can have some issues, constantly asking the same question.